Maaji and Bidibidi refugee settlements in northern Uganda, and show the outcomes of largely South Sudanese refugees, but also host community members. After we delivered 2 weeks worth of permaculture training in June 2018. These images were taken in the second half of October. So if we go July, August, September, October, these are 4 months after receiving 2 weeks of intensive training in permaculture design. Permaculture design is based on observation. It's based on using local and natural resources, and challenges people to strategically arrange these resources in a way in which we can reinforce and enhance certain intended outcomes. Those outcomes, specifically in this context, are around developing food security and then developing livelihoods. We started through a process of really demonstrating techniques and showing people the possibilities, and then providing them with the analysis and understanding as to why these techniques work. So permaculture is much more than the sum of its parts. Permaculture isn't the compost heap, the circle garden, the raised bed, the fruit tree guild. It's the why we do these things. It's the rationale that explains why we do these things and why we work, how they work, and the rationale then that helps us plan and design and set these things in motion in a way in which we can, say, meet specific intended needs and outcomes. A key component of the training process has been what we've called action support phases. So there's been three, there will in total be three intensive training phases. The first one was 2 weeks at residential, so there was a lot of input there. And then in which we focused really on the demonstration and the sort of key explanations of what permaculture is about. Then we've returned to help support people to communicate, better understand these ideas and communicate them. And then the third phase, which we are preparing for now, is around how to replicate these ideas through enterprise and sort of see opportunities here. So, 4 months in, what are we seeing? Well, what's really heartening and encouraging for us as the team that initiated this is that participants have made these ideas their own. They haven't just copied what we've explained to them. They've taken the ideas and they've innovated. They've applied them in a way in which was relevant to their personal objectives, relevant to their personal circumstances, and created a range of outcomes that are absolutely in line with the wider objective of food security, enterprise development, innovation, and education. So, at its heart, these ideas are incredibly simple. We're encouraging people to make compost, to cover the ground with mulch, to shape and profile the surface of the ground to catch and store rainwater and channel surface runoff into areas where it's actually useful. So we're encouraging people to diversify their approaches to food security, not just growing one crop or relying on one approach, but to explore a diversity of approaches, diversity of crops, to combine them together with other support plants, nitrogen-fixing plants, plants that encourage beneficial insects, and so forth, and to sort of to build an integrated approach that includes an understanding and empathy for the ecosystem of which they're part of, not just focusing simplistically on the final yield, the crop that they intend to either eat or sell. So I think the ultimate test is the fact that people haven't just blindly copied what we've told them to do, and what they've understood in different ways the key sort of messages, and they've adapted them to suit their own personal priorities and objectives, circumstances and resources. So this is really at the heart of what permaculture is about. It's not just a list of techniques, it's the strategic thinking and design that goes behind it. Many, yeah, many different really sort of positive outcomes. We're seeing people, not only have people now already produced a crop in such a short space of time, that actually some are already producing their second crop. They're starting to understand the processes in a way in which they're creating long-term changes, beneficial changes to the environment. And by understanding how water flows, how soil carbon accumulates, how the fact that because soil is alive, amending that with compost and mulch actually um, builds fertility successively over time. The action. So we trained 40 people in the initial phase of training, and then they've each been charged with responsibility of reaching out to at least another 4 or 5 members of their community. So we've got what we call our TOTs, our trainers of teachers, and then the Tier 1 trainees, of which now there are 200. So by we're using a mechanism to sort of accelerate out, to roll out this process, we want to reach as many people in the shortest possible time with a minimum amount of resources. Minimum input, maximum effect. What's fantastic is that the Tier 1 trainers, each one of them is starting to become a hub, demonstrating, learning hub, which is inspiring not just their Tier 2, their sort of Tier 1 trainees, but that's now starting to permeate out across the community. People are starting to see visible changes, and not just that, is that they can see that these changes are working and that they're creating meaningful outputs. So this is in turn is accelerating the process. There's been we've visualized the project as having 3 key steps. We call step 1 demonstrate. We're not here to proselytize, not here to tell people what to do. But what we're doing is we're showing people approaches, physically approaches, and explaining how they work in a way in which people then can decide if they want to try those and adapt those for themselves. Then educate. The second stage then is supporting people to then take these ideas, adapt them, make their own, and to actually use them. And to be able to, importantly, to be able to communicate to the people around them what it is they're doing, why they're doing it, and why it works. And then the third stage that we're building up to, which is around enterprise development, is the possibility then to replicate these ideas, turn it into maybe small businesses or small enterprises, and way in which we can then amplify this out across the wider community. So, and permaculture touches on all, because it's about resources, it's about a relationship to the environment, it's about a relationship to community. These initiatives touch on just about every area of life. I think, as you're seeing, the interactions between people and resources are available, sort of manifest everywhere in these images. One of the things that we've looked at is fuel-efficient stoves. Encouraging people to burn wood more efficiently, producing less smoke, reducing the workload and cost, also obviously the impact on the environment, and sort of the idea that permaculture can sort of initiate and support and create multiple benefits is very much at the heart of this. Another idea that we really push people on is start small. Try something out, approach it with a sense of experimentation, and if it works, go large with it, replicate it. So this idea of mandala gardens is quite an interesting thing, is it's repeating patterns. So we start with something small, experiment, see how it works for us, and then if we're getting positive results, then we replicate it, and if we don't, we make changes and we try something else. So it's moving people. In fact, many of the refugees had said to ourselves, look, before we got into permaculture, we were idle. We were literally sitting around waiting for handouts. This has supported and encouraged people to innovate. They're starting to feel a greater degree of control over their destiny, and they're starting to feel that they have an ability to affect really meaningful change around them. Many great examples really of how it's energized and inspired people to not only just to make these changes, but to then to start to sort of have a presence in their own community, in the sense of they're creating options for people around them, opening up new possibilities. It's wonderful to see how the degree of innovation, the degree to which people have taken quite a simple set of strategies and ideas that we've given them, and then see how they've adapted them and applied them to their own to suit their own circumstances and needs. And I see that as a symptom of the sort of success of the project. So as we go forward, this is a 6 month trial period, actually 7 months, winding up in December. We hope at the very least that NRCC and other agencies around these initiatives can see the value of extending the action support phases. We have our brilliant on-the-ground training team of Ugandans, people who we've trained on previous courses. And the work that we're doing is now starting to sort of ignite interest across the whole community. We taught 200 people how to make compost and how to reinforce one of the demonstration plots last time we were up in Bidibidi. And these were people who came with no incentive other than, I guess there's not much else going on, and they got a soda and some biscuits. But basically, they took an active role, and they've gone away inspired, and this is sort of in turn generating more interest in the work that we're doing with the TOTs at the core of the project. This needs to be reinforced. We can't stop at 6 months. This needs to have a longer timeline behind it, and we've got some great training team that can follow this through, and we're just beginning to sort of think and strategize about what else we can do now to build on top of that. So I hope you found this interesting, and I will